The world does not run on headlines, it runs on people who care. I'm Peter Murphy Lewis, and this is People Worth Caring About. Alongside my co-host, Jaylene Carpenter, we sit down with the unsung heroes, caregivers, healers, helpers, the ones doing the real work, even when no one is watching. These conversations are not polished, they're personal, because behind every act of care is a story worth hearing. New episodes drop regularly. Get updates at peopleworthcaringabout.com. This is People Worth Caring About. I'm Peter Murphy Lewis and my co-host Jaylene Carpenter.
Hello, everybody.
We have a special guest today. I know this is on Jaylene's shortlist. His name is Don Woods, account executive at Angels Care Hospice. Don, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Okay, Don. Peter and I have had this conversation of people worth caring about, and he said, who is somebody maybe from your past that you would think it would be a great guest to have? And my first name that I came up with was my friend Don. And Don, this will age me, not you, but can you tell everybody how we first met? You were a team member of mine at my nursing home in Stanton, Iowa. Just tell us maybe how old you were, what you did, all the good stuff.
Yeah, well, I had just turned 21 years old. I had only known about being passionate about taking care of seniors from taking care of my personal family members at a young age. And I remember one of your team members, Jaylene, her name is Evie. She called me. I knew her from the local community, small town feel. Everybody knows everyone. And I remember she said, hey, why don't you come and be a cook at the care community I work at? And lo and behold, I walk in and I meet Jaylene, and I never looked back. I always said from day one, I'm like, she has got the best, like, heart, soul, you name it, and such an awesome leader. But so I always tell people to this day, it's no shock to me that I had a great role model. That's really where, the foundation of where I landed. But yeah, I was 21 years old, walked in, didn't know a thing about cooking. That's another thing that I'll tell you both. I remember one time we had SOS. I'm not going to say it on the podcast what it means, but I had to call my mom and said, Mom, what does SOS mean? And so, yeah, I think you can read in the line.
Don, Jaylene, you don't know this, but I sent questions to Don before this to get to know him and kind of think about what would be some fun topics. And one of the questions I asked him is, who is one of his mentors? And he said, right off the top, he said, Jaylene Carpenter. So Don, I know Jaylene from an executive level, and I see her as a visionary and a pioneer. Tell me how she impacted you. Give me some examples in the way that you are learning the industry, the way that you learn to talk to people, to look at people, to treat them with dignity.
So for starters, that's a no-brainer to me. Number one, it started with orientation, with onboarding. As Jaylene is a leader, I mean, I was so green to senior care. I love seniors. I automatically fell in love and was like, this is what I'm supposed to do the rest of my life. There's no doubt about it to this day, and no looking back, right? So, but Jaylene brought a sense of education and mindfulness of, instead of saying, we didn't start the conversation off by saying we worked in a long-term care nursing home. We didn't start the conversation off by saying that, I met Jaylene at a facility. Those little things are not little. I learned really from her in that time frame how to effectively, be respectful to the residents, their families, team members, how to mentor them. And I also learned appreciation. I mean, Jaylene, I remember one day I was vacuuming. I'm serious. I remember everyone was out, I don't know where they were that day. And I just remember vacuuming. She came up to me and she just said, Don, thank you so much for all you do. That's not a little thing. That inspired me to keep going. I was like, well, thank goodness I'm not making any food in the kitchen at the moment and I'm vacuuming. But I have to tease you there, Jaylene, on that. But yeah, no, that's a great question. So, I mean, really, that's one way. Another thing is the gift of connection. We were in that small town care community in Stanton, Iowa. And, there was a terrible snowstorm that happened one time. And I remember Jaylene was, at I believe a corporate conference of the company that we worked for. And so she wasn't able to make it out there that day. She had a prearranged plan. She would have if she had to, but literally, I don't even know if you could have. It was so bad. So I went and stayed the night to make sure that our residents, had breakfast that next morning. And lo and behold, it turned out that no one could make it in. I ended up pretty much being, getting breakfast ready, serving breakfast. I pulled the team together that was there, rallied them. Again, I just had the heart and passion. And so with Connection, that's when, I didn't know that a short time after that, I'd be wanting to make a switch to Omaha, Nebraska, which is about roughly an hour from Stanton, Iowa. And when I told Jaylene, I was heartbroken. I was like, I don't want to leave you as a leader, but I do feel I want to go to a larger city. And again, she connected me with a next stepping stone for me. I was able to stay with the same organization and thrive and just continue my career blossom from there. So again, I owe Jaylene the world for just, believing in me and, inspiring me along the way too, but leading me with the great foundation. So that's really the thing. I learned so much that helped me spill over into future, any job I've ever done. I walk in with a sense of pride and, a little bit of, knowledge of what to say, what not to say too. So that's helpful. Thank you, Jaylene.
I deserve no credit, literally none, because I can remember hiring Don, and it was like I would have hired him for any job because you could just feel the heart from this human. And Don, at the time, you have to remember, I was 24 years old. You were 21. Like I didn't know what I was doing, but clearly not. You told me earlier, like you didn't know how to cook, and I hired you as a cook. So I don't feel like I deserve any credit, but something that I remember early on about you, and you said it about me that like you learned how to talk to people, but I learned from you, you individualized everything. I don't know if you recall, you would bring cards for residents on their birthday and like always try to make a special evening meal for those residents. Like those things came to you naturally, and just so proud of all that you have accomplished and done in your career. And you told me you fell in love right away. What about this industry as a 21-year-old in a small town made you fall in love right away?
Yeah. Well, number one, when I walked in the door, it was just that smile, but of a senior sitting there in a wheelchair, and nobody was talking with this particular individual. And on one hand, that like pulled on my heartstrings because, I was always raised, be kind to your elders, take time to open the door. But to me, it was just, it spoke to me in ways that no one else can. Here I was getting to see this person smile. When I first walked in, it was just kind of like you could tell, not that the team had them bored. They just didn't have family around. They were just really in need of someone to talk to. And that was like a no-brainer to me. But then getting to, like you said, Jaylene, celebrate them. Some people didn't have family. That's the reality too, is I learned really quickly the role that we get to play in seniors' lives, because let's face it, we end up, I've often felt I have so many grandma and grandpas and moms and dads just because, working in senior care. And that's where I fell in love instantly, was that heart of how can I celebrate, and let people know they're not alone. But at the same time, also bridge that gap too. Here I am very young and here they are, kind of in along their journey. But that also just spoke to me that, this is like a career path that I should do. I mean, it just came so naturally. And I did learn to cook. So to Jaylene's point, I learned to cook. But I also, Jaylene, I appreciated too, because just like her, as well as the next place I went. The next place I went after that, everyone always, really dug a little bit deeper. They knew there was like a diamond underneath. How can we pull out the strengths and the talents? And, eventually let's get you out of the kitchen. Let's get you doing some programming. I became an activity director assistant. That was kind of my first stepping stone. Then CNA, med aid. I've always said I want to be a nurse, but then everywhere I turn around, I'm always getting promoted to either leading teams or you name it. So anyway.
Don, I want to ask you about some special moments. I can tell that you might be one of the happiest people that I've met in the last month. So I want to know, when I ask you, what's the hardest you've ever laughed while working in long-term care? What comes to your mind?
Well, lots of memories, to be honest with you. But one is a particular lady that I was getting ready to do. I was styling her hair. And she was going through rehab, wanted to be home, was really bummed because of her situation. And she didn't have any hair products with her. Well, for some reason or another, not because I would need them by looking at my hair, but I happened to have hairspray in my car. So I went out to my car, I got hairspray on my brake and came back in. And I said, you know what? I have some hairspray. I think we should maybe give it a try with your hair if you'll allow me. And so I ended up styling her hair. And then I teased her and said, the trick, don't you, is you spray and pray. Well, lo and behold, this bottle of hairspray stuck. Her hair would not move in a good way, And I obviously am no hairstylist at all. I had no clue about, I just wanted to make her look good. So I was just like doing this fan back, flip back her hair. And I said, we're going to spray and pray. And that hair stuck in place. And that ended up being where she would not let anyone, the entire time she got rehab, do her hair. I literally came in on my day off one day just to style her hair for her.
I feel like you should patent this. This could be your next brand.
Spray and pray.
Great. So spray and pray. So I've often said, say some spray and a little pray, and there you go. Yeah, and your hair will stay. That's just it.
I love that. Dawn, you talked a lot about some of the different jobs that you've had and how people keep kind of like finding your diamond and finding the talents that you have. When you look back at all of those jobs that you've had, and as you keep talking about getting promoted and leading teams, what would you say that was your favorite? What was of those jobs?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Hands down. So I worked at a kind of a small cottage feel. It was a long-term care, setting. And the mission was to really make it home-like. And so in this setting, I had just gotten my CNA, and I was actually going to work at this place part-time. So like I was just picking up occasionally. And then, of course, they wouldn't let me leave. That's the funny thing. I started and they're like, you're not leaving. But I would go into this cottage setting, and my role was to ultimately take care of the residents. And of course, in the cottage setting, it's really that home-like feel. So the caregivers are not just caregivers providing direct care. We had to do cleaning, housekeeping. We did laundry. We did a little bit of cooking. There you go, Jaylene. But we had a great time. And so the thing was, it was a home feel. Well, I often found myself wanting to pick up extra shifts at this particular cottage just to make sure clothes were matched. I would get with residents who maybe had memory care impairment, and we would match socks. Things where other people maybe didn't find a passion, I did. And so to answer, Jaylene, your question overall, and where I'm getting at with this is, I think one of my favorite aha moments was when Cindy Klein, who was my director at that time, gave me a call at 8 p.m. at night. I thought, oh no, what is going on? Usually this means an investigation or something that is going to have to be reported. What did I do the last shift I worked? And she said, I need you to come in to meet with me. I did that evening, as a matter of fact. And she literally handed me 2 sets of keys to 2 cottages. She said, you will be the greatest cottage guide ever. I have no doubt. And here I was so green. I'd only known the world as a cook activities, activity director. I'd only knew senior care in the aspect of that. I hadn't quite known the leadership, and so I think that first year learning, growing, what to do, what not to do, being fair across the board, you learn all of that. I mean, I just really soaked it up. But I also learned, by making mistakes and trials. And Cindy really poured into my heart and invested in me a success story, really, truly. So, and ended up where I was there for 5 years. I don't want to say I'm the longest cottage guide they've ever had, but I just might be to this day. So, and then when I left, of course, I left for personal good reasons, and I just never looked back, and then the next team I went led was with an actual memory care. And then I never looked back once I got in that setting, because I said, this is really what I'm supposed to do now. And now I'm an account executive for hospice. So it's kind of, come full circle.
Is there anything you haven't done in long-term care?
Just about a little bit of touch and base across the spectrum in all areas, to be honest. There's real, I mean, I
You're a
haven't,
hairstylist.
yeah, I haven't, yeah, hairstylist. Yeah. I haven't necessarily done like a lot on the billing side, but I've worked with budgets, looked at NOIs, KPI,
I
market.
think you might be too happy for the billing side.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I stay away from that piece. Yeah.
What's one of the proudest moments you've had in your career taking care of America's seniors? If I told you, take off your humble hat, I can't believe this happened, and I'm really proud of it.
Yeah, I would say one of the seniors that I was taking care of, she one day she wanted her nails painted really bad. And so again, you're gonna laugh. I'm not one that knows how to paint nails or anything like that. But I went in and painted her nails, and she actually, the night that she passed away, I think this is like my favorite, was the night that she passed away. She specifically called me and said, I know that I'm going to be taking my last breath soon. And it's important to me that you are here with me. And so I rushed up there to be by her side. And as she was getting ready to take her last breath, I was painting her nails.
Wow.
So that is a true story. So it was definitely one of those, I've got a lot of stories like that, but that's one of them.
It's, Don, you clearly pour your heart into all that you do. And here I'm thinking, you've told me some of your successes that you had in sales and filling up a building and all of these things. And yet you come back to being with a resident as they pass and painting their nails. And I think that just goes to kind of your true spirit. I'm curious though, like pouring so much of your life into your job, how has that impacted other parts of your life? And I know that you're incredibly close to your family, and like, how has that journey been?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for starters, as an early leader, though I had fun and had great successful, teams and things, nobody does also prepare you for the heaviness of what senior care can weigh down on, no offense, but the state of Nebraska, when they come and visit a community, or state in any state, we love when they do come and visit. We really do. And we appreciate all that they're going to look into and, discover and educate us on. But that also can be a long week for anybody that knows that. Sometimes that team member that calls in, whether it be intentional or unintentional, there, I said it. Sometimes you're getting those calls that are the toughest calls to get. Someone just lost a loved one themselves on your team, or, they got in a wreck, or, God forbid, you never know what could happen. So you're having to necessarily, shift. It may mean you have to go and cover that shift, So I think, Jaylene, to your point, I've seen so much with family. Really, where it ties in for me is I've always had a support system. My family's always rooted in the background. I recently actually lost both my parents in the past, a couple of years, which is, for them, they're in a great, place. I know that in my heart, but I also know it was kind of their time in their journey. But as far as it goes for like my other half, Alex, he's always super excited and proud too, to be by my side. I think it kind of helped Jaylene, that day one of me meeting Alex, this is so funny. I literally had State walk in that next week after I met him. So he got like, yeah. So I do tease you when I say, oh, sorry, State. I'm throwing that out there, but it's just important to, I think, help your family understand with you, so like things I always did to combat, to answer your question truly, is there'd be times my mom would come with me and volunteer. There'd be times my dad would come with me, if it was a Saturday and I had to go into work because I was leading a team and something happened, I would involve my family so they didn't feel like they were left out. And they had a sense of understanding. And they also had a sense of, oh, this is how we can support you. And so that is very important, I feel, no matter who we are, But I always encourage, anyone that is in senior care, hey, do encourage your family to maybe come to an event with you just to see, because sometimes we can't necessarily explain everything. It's some things you just aren't going to get by trying to explain it, And
Don,
it,
have you
yeah,
have you have you brought anybody into long-term care, recruited, or showed someone that they have the same passion that you do?
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, when I was a memory care director, my goal from day one when I walked in was, how can I look around and hire my replacement if they're not already on my team, or how can I build up who's going to take over when I leave, to leave the legacy, and not just that person, but who are we going to groom after that? And then the other thing was, really putting in place strong leadership team members on every single shift. I actually had my team where each shift, I invested in them, what I wish someone would have done for me, and that's how to do scheduling, how to work with, different scenarios with family, really challenge them. Don't come to me with an issue or a problem, come with a solution. So again, all of those things sound cliche, but those are really some key things, Peter, that I have, have been really beneficial for me. So yeah. And again, that whole thing like Cindy did to me, here's two keys. I'm going to be here to foster your growth. I'm going to lead you, but I've also believed too in the training side with it. I think that's been key is, but as always, some things can't be taught. They have to be caught. I do truly believe that. Jaylene, I'm talking to you there.
Yeah. So it's funny because Peter mentioned that you have done every job in almost all of them in long-term care. But I don't know if you realize you were actually part of a group that started one of the coolest initiatives that we still have here at the association, and that is taking frontline caregivers to Washington, D.C. Do you recall your trip, right? You were the inaugural group that your organization at the time actually paid for you to go to Washington, D.C. and advocate. Tell me about, what do you remember of that experience, and what impact did it have?
Oh, it had a huge impact. The difference that we can make by knocking on the doors in an unconventional way through relationship. I think that was really the key is, you think when you go to Washington, you have to go and knock on every door of every senator, a legislature, you name it. Which, yeah, we did it, go and visit the Capitol and things. But a lot of what we were able to advocate for was done in late, afternoon happy hours, or just, getting to have a discussion with others. But, and again, as always, touring, DC is so beautiful. And Jaylene, I don't know if you know this, but I've actually been to DC twice after with two other companies that I represented as well. But I have to tell you, as always, it's so vital that, if we're front in mind and we stay kind of in the center, that advocacy is so important, which comes back to, I appreciate what Jaylene, you do every day. But yeah, no, the organization that, we both were a part of totally believes in that to this day. They still are going and advocating huge. And it's just it's a great testament of, advocating for the right things. So yeah, but definitely learned a lot. And like I said, communication, I think, does help, but I also was able to, I was able to get in front of some people who were able to get some key bills passed, then too, which also is on the other end of it. That's encouraging because you're like, oh, in a sense, you kind of feel you were part of that.
Don, you have spent most of your adult life, almost all of your professional life in healthcare. How has long-term care changed you personally?
So, I don't think I can go without giving a testament of the era of COVID. And I mean, that's always a tough era to talk about. I know, and so grateful we are where we are today, just being transparent. But I was actually to where I was starting, and this is me being transparent. I went back to a small memory care. I left leading teams for a short bit to just be an activity director. I missed my residents. I miss that sense of family, and I'd gotten to a point too where though I had successful teams and led them up and knew I could, I wanted to take a minute and just, enjoy my weekends. I'm just being honest with you. But then I found, as I said, oh, I want to enjoy my weekends, I was still taking the residents to the zoo and, but that was a little bit in a different facet. I wasn't enjoying my weekends because I had a call in or, whatever the scenario may be. Again, though, to answer your question, Peter, I think for me, it was I really think for me, it was when I learned that I was burnt out. COVID had just kind of, was rearing its head. And of course, my role had changed because at that point I had recently got promoted as sales director. So here I have everyone saying, oh, no, don't move people in, which is the complete opposite of what we're told. Right. And so I'm like, well, how is this going to work? And that's when, I realized kind of in the middle of that, there was one particular day where a community actually in Lincoln, Nebraska had called me. They had no nurse. They had no med aid. Everybody was out truly ill. I had already previously had, COVID, and I was actually able to go and save the day. And I went and worked, I think I worked like 16 hours and turned around and did another 16 hours. And that really opened my eyes because I was getting calls from family members saying, can you please give my husband, and blow an air kiss his way for me. And that really just shifted my perspective. I am supposed to be doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And to be completely transparent, it not only shifted my perspective, the community that I was at, we were probably about, close to full occupancy, if you will, probably around the 75 to 85% range, percentile of occupancy. I remember while everyone was still struggling with, census overall and occupancy through that. Overnight, I pretty much was able to get to 100% occupancy because a shift in my heart had to happen. I had to start realizing I'm here for families and how can I be here, and something cool happened too. Not that any of that was good, but I remember families coming and sitting with me and saying, my mom has memory care and it's not going good. We're isolated at home. And if I keep her with me, it's really it's detrimental to my, sanity. So please help us. And, I was actually getting kind of begged by people, but of course I could relate and tie that in together. But, as always, that's, I think for me, I'm grateful that we're past that now, but also that, that season did kind of speak to my heart, a reminder of why I do what I do. So
you, Don, you ooze passion for this industry, but I also know you volunteer with several organizations that serve our industry. And so do you want to, I would be remiss if we didn't give you the opportunity to talk about some of those passion projects.
That is so exciting that you brought that up because absolutely. So first and foremost, the Alzheimer's Association is a huge passion of mine. I am so thankful to have been a team captain for, I want to say the past 7 years now. I've had a top 5 team, not only in Nebraska, but a top team in pretty much any company I've been with. This year I was teasing Angels Care Hospice. I said, just get ready. We're going to be there. We'll be doing a skate for ALZ event coming up. And that's, I've served as that captain role to raise funds and drive. And what I mean to explain that is I have done a lot of pop-up events, a lot of local events in the community. Things that are small as walking taco bars. People come to me and I invite, professionals. And if you want to give a donation gift, you are welcome, but not required. And, kind of grassroots events like that, but also large scale events. I've done things from, we obviously, like I mentioned, a skate. We actually did roller skating to raise funds for the Alzheimer's Association. I've done pub crawls a couple of years. We did themed pub crawl, come as your team of 4 or 5 dressed as your favorite movie or, TV series theme. That was really a blast. You can imagine I had a huge, we outgrew the pub crawl. We outgrew the bars that we were in. So we had to actually get a larger space the next year. And then another passion of mine is Parkinson's Foundation as well. Currently we have a pub crawl around the corner later this month for that, which is going to be super exciting, and been part of that for a few years now and kind of helping spread the word, get the community engaged in that. And then I lead and land with my Dreamweaver Foundation. Dreamweaver Foundation is also proud with Merrymakers. A lot of people know Merrymakers, where they will provide entertainment for underprivileged communities throughout, the state of Nebraska. And they obviously are an all nonprofit, but it's great what they do. And a Dreamweaver Foundation ultimately makes seniors' dreams come true. So, and I'm currently working on a golf scramble for that. So last year we had a golf scramble. I took the lead over that. It was 7 years successful. And last year, that same community couldn't do it last year. So I stepped in to really save the day with their blessing too. And everyone was like, oh, you're going to be great. And of course, I had no clue about golf, Peter or Jaylene at all. My story, and I'll stick with it, is somebody yelled 4 when I was at a golf course. And I took a drink of water and said 3, 2, 1, like I was taking, the little shot, and didn't realize 4 meant that you need to take cover because a ball is going to be coming by and almost knock you out, which it did. But apart from that, I've just seen the benefit of what they do. And that kind of been my newest niche is how can we, make seniors' day? How can we make seniors' dreams come true? And so I've really partnered with them. I was sold out. The golf course that we did it at last year was Miracle Hill. And if they're listening to your podcast, they'll know what they told me, which is so cool, is that we had the most attendance record in their history of their golf course, which I thought was great. So we actually outgrew them. And now we're going to be at another golf course this year. And I have all 18 holes, food sponsor, drink sponsor sold out as of today. I have 2 teams of 4 that I just need to get their players' names, and the event's not till June 26th. So I think it's a huge testament to our community. And yeah, so again, thanks, Jaylene, for mentioning that, because you're right. I am very passionate about giving back. And, and I also say this too, that there's been other local charities, Ollie's House. There's been a lot of other local charities that I've been very, try to give support where needed. And if that means that I need to coordinate an event to do so, or whatever we need to do to just support them, galas, you name it. I've done a little bit of all of it. I've dressed up, and yeah.
So, Dawn, I'm not sure that you're aware that Peter and I came together because we met at a conference and we started dreaming big, and that resulted in the docuseries that is People Worth Caring About. And now Peter's launching this podcast just to have these conversations. But it really started because Peter and I dared to dream a little big, and then mostly Peter made it happen. And so, Dawn, if you could dream big, what is your big dream? If things could be.
Absolutely. And I love that. As I always say, dream big, imagine big. So for starters, I am a TikTok star. I'm just going to throw that out there. So I'm already living big instead of dreaming big. I currently might only have 14,000 some followers. But I go live every now and then and get TikTok gifts and get to make people's day. So I know that sounds cliche today, but it's not. Another thing too is, to be honest, one of my passions that I really want to get into is inspirational, being a guest speaker. I really want to go and be a motivational speaker, do bookings, hit the road where people can book me to come and speak, whether it be 20 minutes, an hour, forever, whatever that looks like. But I really want to give back. Because, though a lot of what we've talked about is senior care, I've had, personal experience. I had to bring in my niece and nephews to live with me for a full year because of family dynamics. And, so it's not just seniors that I have a heart to give back, but I also have, again, I've learned from personal experiences that I want to have translate to help others, and kind of, start my podcast. And I say start my podcast, start a podcast too. But I think, if I were to be honest and dream big, I think it'd be hit the road and have fun and also try to do some comedy and fun in there too. So, yeah.
Peter, I feel like you have so many follow-up questions. We can't just end.
Well, the first thing is, let's drop your handle for TikTok so everybody can follow you.
Okay. At @DSavageAverage.
And what do you talk about on there?
So at @DSavageAverage, I occasionally have guests that join me on Wednesday nights, and then the rest of the week I go live. And truly, the intent of my going live on TikTok, if I ever do, is to brighten others' day, to give them a shout out, to let them feel like they are heard, but also keep it positive and fun. So it's a fun, free space. It's never anything that's going to be, try to bring up people, lift them up. And a lot of people who have come on my live have also in turn got more followers than I have right now. So I must be doing something right. But yeah, and you might ask why @DSavageAverage. I'll just share it with you too. So my first name's Dawn and my middle name is Savage. So I can't hide that. So I always say, I'm DSavage. And that was taken when I signed up TikTok. So I had to add the average at the end.
You are anything but average.
I know. That's what everybody tells me. And so I just crack up. I'm like, but please know, I tried to just go with DSavage, but they didn't have that. So,
Dawn, thank you so much for joining. I knew this was going to be special when I got your reply on the survey, because you and I have something in common. We both admire Jaylene. So get to hear the stories of how you became who you are, but also having her as a mentor and Colin. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you both. As always, it's great seeing you, Jaylene, and nice to meet you, Peter. I'm a student and I'll definitely be tuning in. And
I hope to see you at one of the conventions soon.
Absolutely. Yes. You guys have an awesome day.
Thanks.
That's a wrap on People Worth Caring About, born from the documentary Built to Keep the Stories Going. Shout out to Nebraska Healthcare Association and Jaylene Carpenter for helping launch it, and to Ohio and New Mexico for making future seasons real. Watch the docuseries online or at peopleworthcaringabout.com. And if this episode meant something to you, leave a review. It matters. Take care of yourself and the people worth caring about.